Hey squad, welcome back. I'm Deuce, and today I'm continuing to explore some of the fantastic features in Logic Pro 11, and I'll be highlighting the Vocal Plush preset in ChromaGlow to help me mix and transform these dry vocals.
I'm moving on from you. I don't want your love. No, 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 no. Why'd you do me like that?
To these. And I'll be using nothing other than stock Logic plugins. So let's get into it. Okay, so before we dive into this session, make sure you check out some of my recent videos covering the awesome new features that come with Logic 11. Links will be above as well as in the description. Now, in order for me to keep this video concise and within a good time frame, rather than building up the mix from scratch, what I'm going to do is I'll show you what stock Logic plugins I've got on each of these vocal tracks, plus one or two additional tips, and I'll give you a before and after so you can hear the transformation. And also, if you want to get this project with all of the presets and plugins I've used, head over to my Patreon where you'll be able to download this one. Okay, let's dive in. Okay, so first things first, let me explain to you what's going on screen right here. Up top here, we've got our musical elements. So I've got them in a track stack, and all of these parts here are pretty much coming from Output Arcade, which is absolutely fantastic. You really ought to try this one out. A link will be in the description for you to download and try this out. This production is by no means fully finished, but it's enough to demonstrate how I'm going to go about mixing some vocals that will go with the instrumental part of the production. Right, so let's close that. Now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tracks of vocals. And as always with my vocal tracks, I send them through to a bus, and on this occasion, my vocals are all going through to bus 5, as you can see right here. And on bus 5, I've got some processing. On each individual vocal track, I've got some processing. The other thing that you will notice is I'm using the auxiliary sends. So I've got on bus 1, I've got a reverb. I'm using a ChromaVerb. That's my reverb bus. And on bus 2, I've got a tape delay. And these are just standard mixing protocols. When you're mixing a track, in particular, when you're focusing on vocals, it's always good to have a reverb bus and a delay bus so you can tailor the ambience of your vocals, giving each element the right amount of delay or reverb that will provide you the outcomes that you're looking for. So let's first of all look at the main vocal track right here. I'm going to take all of this off real quick and then just show you what each of these elements are doing. And I'm going to take all of this off the bus as well. We're just focused on the main vocal.
I'm moving on from you. I don't want your love.
Okay, so let's bring in the compressor.
I'm moving on from you. I don't want your love.
Okay, already we're getting more, and that's because of the settings we've got on the compressor. Make sure you check out my video on the Logic Pro vintage compressor circuits. This is something you must know about, the power of all of these vintage compressor circuits right at your disposal. As you can see right here, I've got the distortion switched on right here to give us additional harmonics that will add more life to this vocal. Let's bring up the EQ. So I've got my channel EQ on, and I'm filtering all of this bottom end down here, and I'm boosting up here this high, mid and high frequency range. I've actually started with the vocal preset male vocal 01, started there, and I've filtered out the bottom end. So let's hear the vocals now with these two in place.
I'm moving on from you. I don't want your love.
Okay, now let's bring in the ChromaGlow, and this is brand new to Logic 11. Essentially, this plugin allows us to simulate different types of saturation you'd get from analog gear. If we come over here to model, we'll see retro tube, modern tube, magnetic squeeze, and analog preamp. Well, of course, retro tube and modern tube represent valve or tube saturation. Magnetic would represent magnetic tape saturation. Squeeze, of course, would be modeling the saturation you might get from vintage analog compressors. And of course, analog preamp, the saturation you get from the mic pre's on classic desks, etc. Now, there are a ton of presets you can choose from for different types of instruments, which is fantastic. You've got, look at all this for drums. Of Of course, we're focused on vocals right here, and we've got all of this right here that we can choose from. I've gone for plush, and then you can apply additional control over the settings. We can go for a soft or hard press. The amount of squeeze right here, we can apply a low cut filter or a high cut filter, and adjust the frequency, the slope and resonance of the frequency where the cutoff begins. Over here, we can bypass below a certain frequency, which we can set, and we can adjust the input, output and mix levels. It's an incredibly versatile unit, and you hear the results as soon as you switch it in. This time I'm just going to solo this main vocal so we can hear it, starting with the plugin bypassed.
I'm moving on from you. I don't want your love. I'm moving on from you. I don't want your love.
Okay, so already we are hearing those additional harmonics cutting through. Now you can adjust all of these settings to your taste, and you can try out all of the different presets as starting points. Now we've got another instance of the ChromaGlow on the vocal bus, which we'll bring in a while. But before we go there, let's bring in the reverb and the delay, which are sitting on the auxiliaries. First, I'm going to switch in the reverb, and let's have a listen.
I'm moving on from you. I don't want your love.
Now let's bring in our tape delay.
I'm moving on from you. I don't want your love.
So we can hear the reverb and the delay are adding some nice character to these vocals. Now remember, if I'm bringing you value in this video, take a minute to like the video and subscribe. This action goes a long way in supporting me and what I'm doing here in terms of the YouTube algorithm and helping my channel to grow. Thank you so much. Now, before we look at the plugins I'm using on the vocal bus right here, I want to show you a really cool trick you can apply using Logic's flex pitch function to create a vocal harmony and create some nice, interesting textured vocals to go along with your main vocal. So have a listen to this section of the vocal.
I'm moving on from you. I don't want your love. Why'd you do me like that? Better off without you. I'm better off without you.
Now have a listen to this, and I'll show you how I created it.
I'm moving on from you. I don't want your love. Why'd you do me like that? Better off without you. I'm better off without you.
Okay, so what have we got going on there? What I did was I duplicated my vocal track. Let's do that now. And then I duplicated the audio region like so. I then went to flex and I switched on flex pitch. Once the analysis was done, I just kind of came up to here. This is all I want really. And then I went in here, switched to track just here, and we've got flex pitch selected. Use the key command, Command A to select all. And now I'm going to move all of this up 7 steps, taking us up a 5th in the scale. Okay, now let's have a quick listen.
I'm moving on from you.
Oh, lovely. And then I'll go through, and any note that doesn't sit quite right, I'll just pull it into position.
I don't want your love. Why'd you do me like that? Better off without you. I'm better off without you.
As if by magic, I've created a vocal harmony in just a few seconds. On that flexed track, I've got the same compressor inserted, but I've got a different EQ. I'm using this preset here under EQ Tools, Phone Filter Notch. I've also got the pitch correction switched in, just using a chromatic scale and on a very quick response time. The other thing I've got going on is a stereo delay. Check out my video on delays, in particular how you can use your stereo delay, and I've got a tape delay just to add a bit more echo to the signal. But I'm going for character, I'm going for something interesting. So let's get rid of this one, the one I just created. Let's move on to the vocal bus. Okay, so the first thing we've got in our vocal bus chain is our stereo spread plugin from Logic, and I'm using the light high frequency spread right here. I've made some adjustments, but do check out my video on how effective the stereo spread plugin can be in giving you that extra width, especially when applied in the right place. So let's have a listen to these 2 vocals just going through the bus, doing an A-B with the stereo spread plugin.
I'm moving on from you. I don't want your
Okay.
I'm moving on from you. I don't want your love.
Instantly, you're hearing some additional stereo width. It's not too much, but it just adds that little extra bit of spice to keep things interesting. Let's move on. We've got a compressor. This is my favorite Logic compressor for vocals. It's the vintage VCA circuit, and it's a modeling of the classic SSL bus compressor. Normally, I'd have the soft distortion switched on, but I've switched that out here because I'm going to be adding additional saturation and harmonics using these next two plugins right here. So let's switch this out for a minute. Next up is this one right here, Logic's Vintage Console EQ, which you'll find under EQ Vintage EQ collection. I've gone for the Vintage Console EQ. This is another one I've done a video on which you really ought to check out. But for now, I've gone for the preset Pop Vocal, and I've made some very slight adjustment. In terms of model, I've gone for the Smooth Console, and the drive is set to almost 12 o'clock. I've switched in the low cut filter, and there's a bit of boost on the high shelf.
I'm moving on from you.
And finally in the chain, we've got our ChromaGlow. Once again, I'm using Plush and I've gone for magnetic. The preset had a much higher drive setting, but I've reduced that to 50% because it works better for these vocals.
I'm moving on from you. I don't want your love.
Okay, it's very subtle, but the coloring is there. All of these different vocal parts have got different settings on them, and you are very welcome to check this out by downloading this Logic project. Like I said, use the link in the description and join me on Patreon. Then you'll be able to download this and use all of the settings I've got here. You can also use the link in the description to try out Arcade completely free of charge. So before I play out, I'm just reminding you, if I've brought you value, remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave me a comment. It's always great hearing from you. And I'm coming back real soon with more fantastic Logic Pro 11 explorations. Until next time, I'm Deuce. I'm out. Peace.
I'm moving on from you. I don't want your love. Why'd you do me like that? Better off without you.